Hello everyone and welcome back to the Big Analytics Query. Today we are discussing all things data migration and how to get a secure and successful data migration. And we are joined by our expert guest, Mehal. Welcome.
Thanks, Tom. Great to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much for joining us. And so why don't we start by just a nice simple question. What is a data migration?
Yeah, so data migration is this concept of going from potentially a legacy estate to a new estate, which could be something that's more modern, something that's more current in terms of features and availabilities, and moving away from something that might be outdated. Yeah. So if we look at the data landscape, it could be moving from something like Synapse, Power BI, PSKUs over to FSKUs and Fabric as an example.
And what is it that you're migrating?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it could be anything from ETL pipelines, so the actual data transformation and the actual configuration of data flows from source system over to output. But it also could be the reports themselves. So the design of the reports, the development of the reports that are in the current architecture, how do we move that over to a new architecture to use the features and the functionalities that are available there.
And so is the ETL pipework, which moves the data throughout the layers, not just the same as a data migration?
No, so that is a good point worth highlighting actually and worth touching on, because when you go through a migration, you don't just move the ETL pipelines and that's it. There's a lot more to consider. And one of the things is actually the discovery and assessment beforehand to understand the anatomy, what's currently there in the existing landscape, to fully understand what needs to be moved, what are the complexities, what are the risks, are there any end-of-life considerations, and then how we move that forward into a migration plan, potentially even a phased approach, like a pilot, phase 1, phase 2. So there's a lot of things to consider outside of the ETL pipelines that might also become important.
And so before we move into that kind of detail of what a migration is,
yeah.
Why would you need one?
I think the main reasons that I've seen in my current role as a pre-sales consultant is a lot of customers are moving from legacy licensing and platforms such as SAP Business Objects, but also other providers such as Tableau, which have hiked their licensing fees or changed their licensing models, which don't suit customers that have been there for quite a long period of time. So they're looking at other options, they're looking at more modern approaches. And typically what we see is customers moving from on-premise, so they might have systems that are running on data centers, on-premise, on-site within a data center, which they want to move to the cloud, which would unlock more flexibility, scalability, and that's another reason that I've seen quite commonly as well.
So it's sort of being proactive and making future choices, or reactive to change and costs that have...
licensing, all that sort of stuff. And also end of life, because some vendors like SAP have other things coming in their roadmap, which are more cloud focused. So they're pushing customers to make more choices around whether they want to move to the cloud, whether they should look at other options. And with that choice comes a lot of cost, complexity. So that those customers are weighing up, should I take that approach? Does that make the most sense now? Or should I look at other alternatives such as Fabric, Databricks, and those other options?
I guess by trying to be proactive and think about data migration, you're not just stuck kind of following along, or when somebody says this product's no longer supported, you don't just panic, you've set yourself up ready for the future.
Yes, and that's where Simpsons Associates would come in to support the customers on that journey. So we do pretty comprehensive migration assessments before we even move into the actual design and development of the migration itself, the actual doing. We spend quite a lot of time with customers deploying certain tools, understanding the current estate, as I mentioned before, the anatomy of what's actually going on, how many pipelines are there, how many people are interacting, what are the tools, the process, the technology, the features, and how that transitions into the new estate.
And what does that migration assessment unlock in terms of knowledge?
In terms of knowledge, so it gives the customer real credibility in what they're doing today. So when we go through an assessment, we can leverage tools such as our partnership with Metonomy, So they have a tool called Metascope, which can assess various different BI platforms to understand the metadata, capture the metadata at the granular level, and actually really data-driven insights into what's there today. So you can know instantly from running that assessment, number of pipelines, number of reports, number of jobs that are running in the background, number of data sources that are connecting to data models, get that full anatomy to then be able to, for us, to advise them on that data, what the best step forward is, how we take that, transition it into the new estate.
And how would you do that? Is there a one-size-fits-all model for migrations, or does it all follow the same structure?
No, it's not one-size-fits-all. We see, actually, great question. What we see is a lot of customers have duplication. That's where this Metonomy Metascope tool comes in, because it can see where reports have been created that are quite similar, where reports are created that are duplicating content, where there's efficiencies to strip back and make it more streamlined. So when we carry out that migration assessment, we look at all those details to actually advise the customer, you've got 5 reports here doing the same thing, but somebody in the business has created a replica and just named it, poor data governance, or put their name on the end of it, but it's ultimately the same report. So we can advise how we strip back that complexity and make the migration more simpler and more honed in on what they were looking for.
So migrating isn't just lifting up your current system and putting it in somewhere new, it's also just improving the tools and kind of developing as you go.
Yes, that's something we bring in to our assessments. We don't just do lift and shifts. We look to really support and work with a customer on that journey. So if they're moving from Synapse to Fabric, it's not just a case of going from data flow Gen 1s to data flow Gen 2s, in Fabric. What is the best natural evolution, but what will also bring them the more flexibility to the customer, more ease of use in the new environment, and make their jobs a lot easier, whether that's using no-code features, applications in Fabric, low-code options, or also maybe even pro-code if they want to move into like notebooks, Python development and things like that.
And you talk about this as a big project rather than just something you do. So you've mentioned the discovery and the assessment side of it, but what are the actual stages of a data migration project?
Yes, so we got first is actually deploying the tool. So that takes a couple of days to actually get the tool, the Metonomy Metascope tool deployed into an on-premise environment or a cloud-based environment, pretty flexible in terms of what we can deploy into. And then just configuring that. So there's a bunch of APIs and Java SDKs that we can configure so we can hit the right endpoints, pull the right data from whether it's a Tableau estate, Power BI estate,
So
SAP
it's really
business
flexible.
objects.
It's got all of those. So the tools in, and then that tells you those kind of discovery and assessment points that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, and then it's a case of working with the delivery team at Simpsons and some of the experts we've got there to understand that data. So once we've got the data, we need people that actually understand how to extract the information and the value on that data.
Yeah.
So, if the report outlines that we've got 10 pipelines, that's fine, but what are the complexity of those pipelines? Are they
not every pipeline's the same, right?
Exactly. Are they dependent on each other? Are the pipelines that come before other pipelines? So is there like a data flow map that we need to build? Yeah. So there's all those sorts of things. After the tool's deployed, we can actually go into the assessment of the data to then help to advise and build that roadmap out and those recommendations. So it's quite a streamlined process in terms of phases. And then obviously at the end of it, we've got the documentation, the costed output. So what this would take in order to actually do the doing. And as I mentioned before, we like to structure that out into pilot and MVP phases. So doing a thin slice of migration first to test the waters, kind of see what the learnings are and kind of work collaboratively with the customer. And then once we've done that and proven the technology, proven the transition, we can then move on to phase 2, phase 3, phase 4.
And so when you're actually doing the data migration, how do you minimize disruption and downtime in the data as suddenly it's in multiple places all at the same time?
So there's a few options to that. So the first one is parallel runs, where we advise to keep the current architecture running operational, just keep doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
So, the users of the reports, the pipelines can still interact with that, get the data, get the insights that they need, and still...
So it's business as normal.
Business as normal, exactly, yeah. The other one is doing the migration during a certain period of time, such as out of hours, outside of business context. What that does is just removes any complexities around conflict during people actually using the platform and impacting performance or any timeouts. So we've got dedicated time out of business hours to focus on the migration.
And then I guess you can put out that message, say there won't be access during these
Yes,
windows.
correct. So we can actually focus, do what we need to, and then business as usual the next day or the next week, whatever's required, yeah.
And do you have any examples of successful data migrations and maybe tips of what they did and things?
Yeah, so Microsoft actually have released quite a few reference architectures for typical migrations where we transition customers from the old Power BI SKU, capacity SKU, which was the PSKU, over to the more current modern one, which is the Fabric FSKU. That involves moving workspaces, security settings, access settings, tenant settings from that estate to the new estate. There's also data flow migrations from Gen 1 to Gen 2. I've also mentioned like Synapse, whatever is being used in the Synapse environment, taking that over from that estate into the Fabric estate. Metonomy tool can assess various different BI platforms, including those that I mentioned, which would help that transition from legacy estates or estates that customers want to move away from, which does help that process as well.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us. And thank you for watching. If you've got any questions about anything that we've said, do put them in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time. Bye.